Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here tonight with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David. How you doing tonight?
Well, it had the makings of a good game when the Oilers were coming back. Then it just went all to crap. Kevin Bieksa called it really well between both periods on Hockey Night in Canada. The Oilers losing 6-3 to the Flames. In the first period intermission, Bieksa says, for the first 17 minutes, the Oilers didn't look like they came to try to win the game.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the second period, he said it's all over. They were down 5-2. And he said it was all over. And he was right both times. I think Bieksa, he's pretty candid and he's very honest, but I'd like to actually hear give him truth serum and hear what he really thinks of the Oilers.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he has some amount of disdain for this team's lack of defensive intensity and sometimes their lack of hockey smarts or game management. I think he'd have a lot to say about both things if you really got him going.
I have disdain for those items myself tonight, David.
Indeed. Let's get into it, Bruce. Our two good things, two bad things, two numbers podcast. We'll go with two bad things each because it was a battle of Alberta defeat. And we also have a conundrum at the end of it. What's your good thing, Bruce?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the play of Dylan Holloway.
Yeah.
Who was a player who I thought delivered with the intensity of the game, which it was kind of a vicious game, and it got off the rails in places. But I thought Holloway mostly kept it on the straight and narrow, at least until he got a 10-minute misconduct and left the game with 3 minutes to play for not much. The refs were just clearing the benches at that point. But I just saw several plays of promise, and this kid is always flashing promise, and there's usually not a lot of payload being delivered at the end of it in terms of goals
results.
And points and pluses and results, and really there were none tonight either in that end. But he had I just liked his involvement in the game. I liked the way for instance, he took a puck hard to the net in the third period, and after he got knocked down, he made a diving play to chip the puck back to the point and keep it alive. And then they kept the pressure on, and he was banging guys on the boards, and I just thought he was a lot more alert and paying attention to the hockey game than many of his more famous teammates were. And I thought this was a game where, he was one of the few that caught my eye in a good way, to be honest.
I agree. Fast, aggressive player. Maybe top end, he's Ryan McLeod with more aggression, which is a pretty good player. He's got a similar skill set. I like him at center. They don't always play him there. They don't often play him there. Mm-hmm. But, I think once his reading of the game and a little bit more patience, a little bit more calm with the puck takes over, that he will start to make some good plays with the puck and become someone who doesn't look like he's going to be like a 70-point guy, but maybe he can get like that 30 to 50-point range in his career in the NHL. He's he's the rookie forward. He has a hard time getting ice time on this team, but I think he's gonna stick, and I still hope in the playoffs he's gonna make a really positive mark. I see him, Bruce, in the playoffs. I have them imagining, the 1990 Cup run is so memorable to me still, and that line of kid line, and Holloway feels like he could have been on that line. He could have been one of those guys, and he could be in the playoffs. It strikes me as like just a fast forechecking line that keeps the puck in the opposition end, doesn't score much, but is effective in that way. I think he could fulfill that role in the playoffs, even on a third or a fourth line for the Oilers this year.
Well, he had numbers tonight, David, that'll blow your socks off. I mean, he only played 7 minutes and 36 seconds. Let's start there. 6 shot attempts, 3 on goal, 3 hits, 2-0 in the face-off circle. And while he was on the ice, 7.5 minutes, the Oilers had 19 shot attempts and Calgary had 1. They just dominated the possession game, 19-1. His
And he
line mates
was
Connor Brown and Derek Ryan were just equally phenomenal shot share, over 90%. Like, wow.
Holloway was driving it, and he has the potential to drive a
Hmm.
line, right? Because he can carry the puck and he's fast,
Hmm.
like McLeod does at
Hmm.
times. So both those players, we just need to see timely
Hmm.
scoring from both, and that's all you'd ask. Bruce, my good thing was another player in a similar category. He's got his share of critics on the Oilers, and he wasn't perfect tonight. That's for sure. He was a culprit on a goal against, which is unusual for him at even strength. But Matthias Janmark
Hmm.
came through. Wasn't in the end? He got a goal. I think it's his fourth of the year, so he's starting to score a bit. But
3 in the
more
last week.
more to the point, it was fantastic how he stood up for Connor McDavid. And if this wasn't a game that gives you a lot of hope for the Edmonton Oilers, they've reverted back to almost every single bad habit that we saw at the start of the year. And it's been going on for a while now, and it's getting discouraging, frankly.
Hmm.
Um, but one of the things you see with this team is they do fight for each other, and that's a really important quality in a team. Janmark, I think DeBrusque said it was his second fight in the NHL, but he went right. Blake Coleman is a fairly rough customer. He's a tough guy, and
Yep,
he hit McDavid hard.
you did.
Coleman did, knocked him off his feet, and Janmark went first. He went after him, and they both got coincidental minors. And then after the minor penalty, Janmark went after him, and in the fight, for a second fight, he was aggressive in that fight. He was trying to punish Blake Coleman.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, he was chucking
Either that
him.
or he was either that or he was desperately fighting for his life. Janmark and thinking, well, I'm just going to keep throwing punches. That's what he
Uh-huh.
did, and it was fairly effective. He really got some hard
Yep.
punches in there. He threw about
Uh-huh.
15. I didn't count them, but he threw a lot of punches.
Yep.
He was very active in that fight, and he won the
Uh-huh.
fight. So I
Yep.
just give him
He-
credit, though, even if he lost it, Bruce. I
Yeah.
give him credit for showing up, and even more
Hmm.
credit for winning it. And it felt like the Battle of Alberta. It really put a lot of life in the game.
He had a pretty fat lip after, so obviously
He
Coleman
got
got
hit.
one good one in on him at least.
Yeah.
But I would agree that Janmark had the better of the exchange, and it was. I didn't mind just seeing an Oiler sort of stand up to a guy that took, liberties with McDavid, and uh, there was a lot of bad blood in this game,
I
and
loved it, Bruce. I didn't
there
mind.
was
It's
there
not
was
that I
there
didn't
was
mind
there
it.
was lots of nastiness in this game.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say Janmark was one of the nastiest players in it, but he sure made Blake Coleman his personal project after that hit, and took care of business. And he scored a nice goal later. So,
Holloway tried to fight Coleman too later in the game,
hmm,
and so I like that. Kane was his usual nasty self. Um, Cross-checking Nazem Kadri.
Kane and Perry, yeah.
Yeah, they were nasty. Not that effective though as
No,
players this game, Bruce. They
no.
were not that effective. Although Kane had one good shot at a key moment of the game, and he
Hmm.
just couldn't drain it. Anyway, Janmark was my good thing. He, it's not even certain that he'll be in the starting lineup when they get to the playoffs. I think he will find a way to get there because he's such a key penalty killer and he's a solid even strength player. And if he cranks up the aggression, he can score. He's not without finesse. He's been usually about a 10 goal scorer in the NHL in the regular season, and so he can put the puck in the net
He actually
now and then.
deked the goalie and shot it into the net. Like his first 2 goals this year bounced off his body and in. The third one was a Cody Ceci shot that somehow dribbled through a goalie, and Janmark pounced on it, and that was Swayman against Boston, I
Yes,
think. And
that's
he
right.
and he and he got in behind him, and he sort of tucked a 1-footer into the net. And now tonight he actually went around the goalie and scored a, I won't say goal scorer's goal, but an actual not just standing around the net and having one go in somehow, but he actually made a nice move and play. And as you say, he's a consistent 10-plus goal scorer in this league over the years, and it was mystifying how he could only have one goal in February. Well, he started to set that, level that bar a little bit, and he's up to 4. Tiny bit of secondary scoring helps, even as it was 6-2 by then, so it didn't really move the needle a whole lot.
I didn't mind. I liked Knobloch pulling the goalie when he did. I thought, he got the grade A chance that he needed in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Hyman almost scored. And so I saw online some criticism, like when Janmark scored. If only he hadn't pulled the goalie, then, but that's
right.
it's not how it works. You need to try to score. You're down by 3. You're doing nothing. They weren't generating much. It was a valid risk, and it almost worked. McDavid almost got the rebound and put it in, but it was just not his night to break his own goal.
It's not his month to put it in.
It is not. Bruce, what is your bad thing? Your first of 2?
Yeah. Well, my first of 2 bad things is second night in a row. I'm going to say the same thing. How Oilers started this game, and they came out and they flat out weren't ready to play, and Calgary just took it to them for the first more or less 15 minutes of the first period and ran away to a 3-0 lead, and it was just a horror show in the show of some kind anyway, in the Oilers' defensive zone. It was like, they might as well rolled out the friggin' red carpet between the face-off circles and say, Calgary players, just skate right through here. Nobody will touch you, we promise. And they just came cruising in there time after time, either breakaways or nobody covering. Guy just has a clean walk in on the net. And Edmonton's defensive play and their back checking was woeful. The great Connor McDavid was a major defensive culprit on the first and third goals against. On the first one, he looked like he had some Kadri, and then I don't know if Kadri pushed off him a little bit, but Kadri separated from McDavid and deflected the pass into the net, and a 2-on-2 became a guy alone in front tipping it in. And then on the third goal, he was right, in the right behind the guy who was goal scorer, and he was just sort of standing there watching the play, and the guy just skated away from him, and puck came to him, bam, that was in the net. That was the game. Well, I guess it wasn't the game winner, but it was the one that, once it was 3-0, it was Edmonton playing chase the rest of the way. And not to single out, I just did single out McDavid, but he was not the only culprit. There was a lot of crappy defending going on there, and people missing their men, heads not on swivels, and just, clean chances and grade A shots for Calgary, of which they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5 grade A shots in the first period, and all 5 of them 5 alarm shots. So they weren't just given good chances; they were given great gold-plated chances up. And I give Calgary a ton of credit; they had a fine game, but they were the best team on the ice by some distance. And Edmonton just, for whatever reason, after 2 weeks of stinking it up in the second period, this weekend is just turned to the first period where they got shellacked, and it was just poor.
It's a revolving door of bad smells. Bruce, the McDavid's mistakes were typical, I think, of kind of the lack of intensity. Like if you're super sharp on both those plays, the offensive players just wanted to get to the net more than the defensive player wanted to cover him going there. Yep. And so if McDavid's super sharp, he figures out a way to not let Nazem Kadri win that physical battle to the net. And he's sharp enough to think, I'm going to get on the right side of the puck on the third goal and not allow that guy in for the open shot.
Hanifin, yeah.
And in between that, it was Draisaitl, like a terrible turnover. 5 minutes into the game, Leon makes, both
Bouchard and Ekholm were like miles from position, so that when the puck was turned over,
they're charging up ice.
Skated down. Yeah, well.
And Leon makes a turnover there. Both defensemen are charging up ice. Again, it's part of this. it's a lack of discipline, Bruce. The Oilers are super keen to go score goals again. They're super keen to go on the attack and charge up the ice. They're super keen, but they're not super keen to play disciplined hockey. They're playing undisciplined hockey. They're playing undisciplined on defense. They're overly aggressive often on defense, and they get caught out of position. They're overly aggressive on the attack, charging up to join the rush. So when your teammate does make a turnover, as happens, there's no one there to cover him. On the next 5 alarm was Draisaitl again, and he allowed a pass. He just was late on a pass, and there was a wicked shot because of it after a turnover by Nugent Hopkins. So these guys, they're their 2 best players. They're not alert, and everyone's just going gangbusters for goals instead of thinking, I am going to be a disciplined, fierce defensive hockey player. But a key is discipline. Smart defensive hockey, and the Oilers have thrown that out the window after putting on a display of it for 2 months, and it's frustrating to behold.
This was as undisciplined a game as they've played in a long time. They lost their they retaliated. They took some cheap shots. They got away with some, and they got called for some.
Yeah.
And it just became more and more of attrition. But the best way to get your revenge, beat them. Calgary be pretty happy dressing room tonight. I imagine Edmonton's wasn't that happy because they lost their focus, among other things that they lost.
My bad thing is Stuart Skinner, Bruce. He let in 2 goals that I thought he should have had, both outside shots. They were both really good shots. So let's give the shooters credit. But on both of the shots, so the first shot, is it Pospisil? He comes in over the blue line. There's all kinds of, I don't know how Evander Kane and Cody Ceci and Matthias Janmark let this shot get taken. But it is from the top of the circles. And it's not a 2-on-1. There's no one in front of the net. There's nothing else happening. There's just one Flame charging in the zone to rip off a shot. That would be a cue for the goalie. If he's super sharp and confident, you can come out a bit more. I'm going to suggest cut down the angle a bit more, and you make an easy save.
Top of the crease, at least, would be nice.
Yeah, he didn't do those things, and because of that, he gets beat. The next goal is the Oilers battle back. It's 3-2, and it looks like they're going to get back in this game. Maybe get the next goal. They're playing well, and Nurse loses his stick, and then there's some scrambling around. Fogle gives him the stick, scrambling around. There's a pass out front because everyone's disorganized and discombobulated, but it's again a shot from the top of the circles, and Skinner isn't screened on the shot. And he hasn't been moving around that much in his net. He's just making a shift from the post up to the middle of the net. But he lost the middle of the net. He was over on one side, and he left the whole blocker side open, and Dryden Hunt picked it. So again, he's just out of sorts in the net. He's not, when Stuart Skinner is at his best, he is pretty much unbeatable on the first shot. He might allow in a rebound, but on those first shots, he's fantastic. And he was that way for a long time, for during the winning streak and before then. He started to play super solid first shot, first stop hockey, and he's lost that. Yeah. He's getting beat again and again on shots that break your back as a team. Even though these are good shots, you expect NHL goalies to make those saves 85 to 90% of the time. At least, even on those good shots, and he didn't do it tonight, twice.
Yeah, Skinner. Yeah, they've been. Yeah.
Bruce, your second bad thing.
Yeah. Second bad thing. You go ahead. Yeah.
Mine's. So right after that, the Oilers are down 4-2. They're still not out of the game.
Right.
And what does Leon Draisaitl do? He's mad at Pospisil. I don't, probably, I think, is that the guy who slew-footed him? So he's mad about this player, and he takes a run at him and pushes him really hard, which was good, and he didn't get a penalty. And then, but he wanted to hurt him or he was just mad at him. So then he hacks him and hooks him and knocks him to the ice. It is an obvious penalty. It is just super undisciplined. It is the height of undisciplined hockey. It is not what an assistant captain, guy who's been in the league a long time, should be doing when his team is down and needs a goal. And they scored on the power play. That is not even close to good enough. And I noticed that I think that, I thought the coach might even bench him for a little bit there. Such was the undisciplined nature of that play. But he didn't send them out at the end of the penalty with McDavid. I don't think.
Well, that's because they scored on the power play.
Oh, they scored on the power play, but he could have sent him.
That was a killer penalty. That ended the game.
But he didn't send Draisaitl out for the next shift. Right. Usually he's out after. He's usually out in that moment. So there was a slight wee little message by the coach. Yeah, it's just like, come on, Leon. Like,
that penalty was unacceptable.
I hope someone asks him about it after the game, because I think it's a fair question. What were you thinking? Why did you take that penalty? And ask him and see what he says, because he should step up and take full responsibility and say he just made a terrible undisciplined mistake that cost him his team in a big moment.
Yeah, well, they were going at it pretty good and giving each other shots back and forth, and the puck was long gone. And then as Pospisil tried to rejoin the play, Draisaitl just hooked him high around the shoulder, and with the ref like 5 feet away. I mean, even an NHL ref can see that, right? And I'm not going to bitch about that call, because that's a penalty 100 times out of 100. He just hooked the guy down hard, and it was nasty. Anyway, that'll be my second bad thing. And I know you like the rough stuff, and I didn't dislike all of the rough stuff. Let's put it that way. But here's Edmonton Oilers penalties tonight: hooking. Okay, and then we've got roughing, cross-checking, fighting, hooking, another hooking, slashing, fighting, unsportsmanlike conduct, that was Corey Perry, misconduct, cross-checking, misconduct, and, a lot of rough stuff and a lot of, sticks going around. And Corey Perry and Evander Kane, they're tough guys and they were dishing it out, but in the meantime, they didn't play a whole lot of good hockey, I didn't think, and they just were a lot bigger part of the problem than of the solution tonight, those guys, and more than those guys. But it was, that's a lot of penalties, David. What they have, 46 minutes in penalties. Calgary had 34. And it was...
Well, it all started, with Nurse. The Oilers, Hyman had scored to make it 3-2. And just shortly after that, the Flames get the puck and are rushing up ice. And Nurse decides he's going to charge on a pinch way up into the Calgary zone to hit somebody. It's a late hit. He took himself right out of the play. And that's when Calgary came down and they got two really good chances. One of them, Ceci, stopped the goal from going in because Skinner was out of the net. And then Skinner kind of sprawled, and then he got up, and then he sprawled again, and he made the second save. All that starts because Darnell Nurse decides he's going to charge up the ice and make a big hit when it wasn't necessary, and when he knew he's taking himself out of the play with it. So it was just...
Ceci made a big block there, and then on the second chance, Chillington, I think, had the chance, and he fired it high, and Skinner got his shoulder on it.
Got it.
He was way off on one side of the net. Like, if the guy had shot on the other side, it would have gone in. And so, he did. Skinner, I will say, what did he stop tonight? 2 or 3 breakaways?
He did have some good saves. There's no... Like, Calgary... So the grade A shots, Bruce, let me just give you those, were 16-11 for the Oilers. The Oilers had a run of them in the third period when it was kind of out of hand. 16-11 for the Oilers, but the 5 alarm shots, the subset of even more dangerous shots, was 9-6 for Calgary. Yeah. So Skinner did have a lot of difficult shots. And the two that I highlighted were really good shots. I'm not saying they weren't. It's just they're just NHL goalies are expected to stop really good shots. And such is life.
This is several times lately. We don't usually see this. Usually the team that has the most grade A shots also has the most 5 alarms. And I would suggest there's been 3 or 4 games lately where Edmonton's had the more grade A's, but they've given up the more 5 alarms. Like, Edmonton's defensive mistakes tend to be more egregious than those of the other team. And you know, when they do give up a chance, it tends to be 10 bell.
Okay, so we're through the bad things now, and
Are
we're
we?
on to it.
I'm just
Yeah,
getting started. Well, at least I got to write about it, eh?
we're on to our numbers. What's your number?
Yeah. I got lots of numbers, David, but I think I'll just go with 16. In the month of January, when the Oilers went 11-0-0, they allowed 14 goals in an entire month. Now, this week, the Oilers have had so far 3 games of a 5-game homestand, three home games, and they've already given in 16 goals in the 3 games. And their defensive play has completely evaporated. And
They started to
it's
believe their own press
goaltending,
clippings,
it's
Bruce.
defense, it's forwards, it's everything. All the things they were doing right, they aren't doing any of those things right. It's like they forgot all of it. And this disciplined, mature, you know, defense first, take care of business and get our goals when we get our chances team, where is it? It's gone. It's like it never happened. It was a mirage. And we're
Maybe it
back in the
was.
desert.
Maybe it was a mirage
We're
built out of desperation.
back in the desert with no oasis in sight.
Those 40 days, we're going to have to suffer through this. They're
Right.
tempted by goal scoring, Bruce. They really are.
Yeah, no, it's you're right. It's they've just
not
pedal
a
to the
lack
metal.
of
Let's go back to
yeah,
Oiler hockey because it worked so
yeah.
well in October.
It's not a lack of. They're aggressive.
Jesus.
They're just
I
not
mean,
aggressive on. They're just not. They are undisciplined on
totally.
defense.
So
Totally
aggravating.
undisciplined. And it's almost, I don't know, like, what do you got to do before the game? Visualization, visualize yourself back checking and getting on the right side of the player in the defensive zone. And that applies especially to number 97 and number 29 in this moment. Like, just, you know, like, just, they're not doing it.
No.
And it's not good. It is not good. And the suffering will continue until they figure it out. Bruce, this team can win the Stanley Cup, but it's got to play a fanatically disciplined brand of hockey. And I don't know if they're capable of it. Like we like in the playoffs. I thought
Another
during those 2 months I
game
was
winning
thinking,
streak will do it.
yeah, it's a long enough stretch. You think it's a long enough stretch that you think they're going to do it in 16 games, of course, is what you need to win the Stanley Cup. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting. They just got hammered last year in the playoffs. There couldn't have been a louder message than what Vegas gave them when they couldn't hold the lead against Vegas. Like, you can't play the style of hockey you want to play and win in the playoffs. You will never win in the playoffs playing that hockey. And this is the message to the best players on the team. Did they get it?
Well, they're scoring goals at a higher rate in February than they did in January. So on the offensive side, it's working. They're actually outscoring their pace in January.
Yeah.
It's just the little matter of 14 goals against in January in 11 games, 42 against in 10 games in February. It's like, wow, triple number of goals against. And that's, you know, if they get a shutout on Monday against the Kings, then they'll be triple after the same number of games. And somehow I doubt that's going to happen the way they're playing.
Wonder who will play on Monday.
That's a very good question.
Let's have that as our conundrum then. Who's going to play?
That's
your
a very
call?
good question. Yeah. It's Kings. It's a big divisional opponent. My guess is they'll go with the number one. But
I got to give my number because this relates to that.
Oh, right, okay. Right. Okay.
So my number is 6. This is the 6th game in a row where the Oilers goalie has made a major mistake on a goal against. And these aren't during the winning streak. It was really uncommon to see that. I don't have the number in front of me now, but
there was one in January by Pickard in Detroit.
Yeah, they just was so rare for them to give up a bad goal, and now there's been 7 in 6 games, 2 by Skinner tonight. So it's just like game after game after game, they're giving those back-breaking goals up, and they're getting their backs broken. So the conundrum is, what do you do here? Like, and I don't think they're trading for a goalie, Bruce. They talked about it between periods on Hockey Night in Canada. Bieksa seemed of the mind to trade for a goalie. Why, as he put it, why not? Like, you want to go for it. Elliot Friedman was saying that he felt that they're going to try to build up around them, like trade for a backup goalie and build a better defensive team around them. And my inclination is what Friedman said, but right now, like, I don't know who you go with. I think they'll go with Skinner. It's my bet. What do you say?
On Monday against the Kings,
Yeah.
it'll be Skinner because he's the number one, and they want to get him back on track. But I don't know what they do between now and 44 hours from now when they drop the puck on that game, because he's been fighting it for a while, and his I hate the term body language, but his slumping shoulders after yet another goal goes in has become a very both irksome and worrisome sight.
It's not like
guy
him, right?
That's lost his confidence and his his swagger, and yeah.
Maybe they should give Mike Smith a jet ride to Edmonton, and they can go out for a couple of beers or something tomorrow and air it all out. He needs some of that Mike Smith advice.
Put him in
some
net.
Of that. Put Mike Smith in net. Mike Smith. What a legend Mike Smith was in net for the Edmonton Oilers. What a dramatic hockey player.
Yeah. Lots of people didn't like him, and there was reasons not to. But compare him to all the other goalies that we've had here in the last number of years, and he stands up pretty well.
Yeah.
Especially at the price point.
Yeah. So the greater conundrum is, with the goaltending is, so both Bieksa and Friedman seem to agree that they need another backup. Pickard has been fighting it, like, for a couple of games himself. He's been battling it. I don't know, like, Jake Allen is the top goalie on the trade market, or I guess Fleury's the other one if he wants to move. But Jake Allen is.
What's Jake Allen going to do for you that Calvin Pickard can't?
Well, that's it. Like, I don't know why you'd ever trade anything for Jake Allen. Like, everyone, like, he's at the top of these trade lists, and before, like, the price was going to be high for Jake. Why? Why would the price be high for Jake Allen? Why don't you bring back Jack Campbell before you, like, I know that's like going to offend people to hear that, but Jack Campbell's probably a better goalie than Jake Allen. I mean, he's had a terrible run with the Oilers, but over the last 6 years, it's not close. So I don't get the Jake Allen thing, but maybe Marc-Andre Fleury, like yet another veteran, might be the idea.
Name does keep popping up, but he, when I see him every once in a while, he looks good, but he looks, like he's near the end of the line.
Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing. Jake Allen is this year 5-11-3, 366, 894 with Montreal Canadiens, which is not a good defensive team, but this just in, neither are Edmonton Oilers. I just can't see him coming in and providing a miracle cure to what ails the Oilers. Grade B goals or no that we're seeing in recent games. The fact is that Oilers goalies have been under onslaught for, with all the defensive peccadillos in front of them.
Marc-Andre Fleury, 11 wins and 13 losses, a .899 save percentage. So he's more in the running, I guess. And he is a veteran, and he's got the Stanley Cup experience. So maybe they'll
Jake Allen won a Stanley Cup with St. Louis. I mean, he won it from the bench while Jordan Binnington played all the games. But
there you go.
Anyway,
there you go. When was Fleury last good in the playoffs?
Well, he got replaced by Murray, Matt Murray, both at 2016 and 17. He's got a no move clause, and he's got a $3.5 million cap hit. Fleury does, meaning you'd have to trade assets not just for him, but to buy down his thing, and he would still be $1.75 million. And there's just no real room for him. Like, a lot of this stuff's wishful thinking, David.
It is.
That's true. They don't have cap room, and they don't have a whole lot of assets to either buy down incoming cap hits or just acquire the guy in the first place. I mean, Jake Allen, He's got his cap hit this year is $3.85 million. Like, even if they retain half, you got to fit $2 million in there.
I don't think they're doing that. I think they're gonna get both a forward and a defenseman, is my guess, Bruce. And I think they need both at this point.
Yeah.
I think they need puck moving defenseman. They need someone who can, and I brought up this name Anton Strawman before, that kind of defenseman. He just can be quite a quiet game, but he's just got to be able to really move the puck and play with Nurse. If he's capable of that, right shot defenseman who can really move the puck and is solid defensively, doesn't have to be a big point producer. Can they get that? Give up your first pick. They have one really good asset, right? The first pick.
Yeah, they got Broberg, they got Boakey, and they got the first pick. That would be tempting to other teams.
Yeah, people think Raphael Lebois might have trade value. I mean, it was on waivers earlier this year. Anyone could have him. Xavier Bourgault, their first pick from a few years ago, has 16 points in 47 games. He's
hit a wall down there.
He's a nothing player in the AHL in his second year in the AHL. Like, there's no way he's got much value at all. He would probably clear waivers at this point. Yeah, I don't know, Bruce. There's not a lot of assets. There's Maximus Wanner, like a big, tough young defenseman who's 20 years old, that I could see another team wanting, possibly. But maybe it's Philip Broberg, but he's on the wrong side, right? Like,
yeah, well, he's hurt right now.
And he's hurt right now as well. Yeah. Anyway, they do have the first pick, so they can make one major trade, and then so they either bring in the top player as a defenseman, or they target a forward. I'm good with either. They could use help in both areas, like another center, really good third line center, or a top four demon with the first pick. Go in either direction works for me.
Yeah, well, I think it's becoming clear that they need help. What's becoming less clear, what we've seen lately, is are they really in position to contend? Like, they got holes. They got a lot of holes.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm still okay with them. They played a great 2.5 months of hockey when Knoblauch took over. This is a team that can really play. Connor McDavid is fiercely determined, and I think all these things that we're raising, we're not going to say anything that he doesn't know and doesn't believe himself, and he's going to take care of it. He's going to take care of his own game, and he's going to push these other players. So I'm just a real believer in the captain this year, and I think they're going to figure it out. But I think they will need some help, and I'm starting to lean more and more towards the defenseman angle, that puck moving defenseman, steady puck mover. Could they try to get Noah Hannafin? He's going to be he'll be a first pick plus, obviously.
He wants to go to the States, and he's an expiring contract, so whatever, he'd be a strict rental.
He's a lefty too, right? So
he's a lefty.
He's another lefty.
Yeah,
he's not perfect. I noticed Tanev in a good way. He seemed to move fairly well. Maybe he'll be the guy. I don't know. He's kind of old, but and again, I don't really have a solid opinion on these players. I don't watch them. Yeah, I don't watch them closely enough to really have a credible opinion. I'm just throwing out names that everybody else is throwing out. All right, Bruce, let's leave it there. I guess you got a big night ahead of you, right in the game grades.
Yep, I'm going to be a little terse tonight, I suspect.
Why not?
Maybe even curt. Apologies to our coworker Kurt. I'm talking about the C word, Kurt. So being abrupt.
All right, Bruce. Thanks for talking.
Not much good to talk about that game.
No. Thanks for talking tonight.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between time, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.